So you're thinking about moving to Melbourne, Florida. Well, today I am going to go over 12 things you should know when considering moving to Melbourne, and we're going to get into it right now. So the first on the list is its location. Melbourne is located in Brevard County, which is also known as the Space Coast because we launch rockets and satellites out from Merritt Island, Titusville, Cape Canaveral area, home of Kennedy Space Center and NASA, SpaceX, Blue Origin. So all that is just north of Melbourne. And in Melbourne, you're going to have it's going to be south of Rockledge and north of Palm Bay, and along Melbourne is the Indian River. So it's not the beach right there. Sometimes people will think that's the ocean, but we do have an Indian River. It's also the intercoastal, so it's great for anyone who loves water sports or going boating, jet skiing, all of that. And then it's super close to the Atlantic Ocean. You just have to hop over a bridge to get there. So number 2 on the list is going to be that Melbourne is kind of like our metro city. So it's not the largest in population. That would be given to Palm Bay, but it's kind of like the hub of Brevard County as far as it has a lot of shopping, lots of grocery stores, doctor offices. So a lot of people I know who live in other cities will go to the doctors in Melbourne. I know it sounds really exciting, but there are a few malls. Just north of Melbourne in Vieira, there's an outdoor mall. There is a master plan community. There's actually 2. There's Vieira and Century. And then also located in Melbourne is a couple of malls. And so lots of shopping opportunities. It's easy to get to lots of places in Melbourne. So that's kind of why it's our metro. Also, a lot of people will start in Melbourne when they are relocating here. So Melbourne is kind of like maybe the most well-known city versus the most common city that people first look when they are considering buying. And many still end up in Melbourne. Some end up in Palm Bay, Merritt Island, Rockledge. So I like to start in Melbourne, but a lot of these things are also general to this space. So just keep that in mind to keep your mind open. I have people that reach out to me for Melbourne and then really tell me what they're looking for. Sometimes there's some other areas that work a little bit better. But today we are going to be talking about Melbourne specifically. Okay, number 3, let's talk about traffic. So as I mentioned, Melbourne is sort of like our metro city. I mean, it's definitely not Orlando by any means. It's not a huge city, but it's the most city-ish compared to all of them. It's the most urban. And so during rush hour, we can get a lot of traffic. And that is one thing a lot of people complain about. There's a lot more cars on the roads since 2020. A lot more people have moved here, just like a lot of people over Florida. However, it's definitely not like a huge city. Orlando gets so much more stuffed up. You're stuck in traffic a lot longer. And also Miami, Atlanta, nothing compared to that. It just gets a lot more busier during rush hour, just like anywhere. But otherwise, it's still moving. If you live in a certain area that's normally 15 minutes to the beach, on most days, it's still going to be only 15 minutes to the beach unless you're traveling at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. or 9 a.m. in the morning or 8 a.m. So just keep that in mind. If you're kind of used to more rural, this might be a big culture shock. But if you're used to a big city, then this should be a piece of cake as far as traffic goes. All right, number 4, let's talk about the culture. So people are super friendly in Melbourne. You might go online. You might even read a comment below here that isn't so friendly. Might be telling you to stay put. Florida's full. We don't like people moving here. XYZ. Don't New York, my Florida. Stuff like that. Which we can all understand that if someone's lived here for a long time and they liked how it was nice and quiet in certain areas, that could be annoying. But at the same time, those are keyboard warriors. At the end of the day, people are super friendly. A lot of them are transplants themselves. Just a couple hours ago, I was over in Vieira and we were filming in a neighborhood and literally everyone slowed down and waved to us. So even my neighborhood, everyone waves to each other. It is overall very friendly. People want to talk to their neighbors, know their neighbors. If you're coming from the Northeast, like I wasn't used to how friendly people were. I definitely love it, but it was a little bit of a culture shock. So it's just something to expect when you move here, and don't necessarily read the comments on a Facebook group or something like that and get scared off because not everyone's like that. All right, let's talk about number 5. So a common question that people ask preliminarily when they reach out is, can they get insurance? Is there flooding? How is insurance super expensive? And for the most part, Melbourne is inland, so it's not along the ocean. Now, if you get a riverfront home, you might be looking at a little bit more pricier insurance, but for the most part, it really depends on the type of home you buy. There's a lot of newer homes in Melbourne starting from the 1980s all the way up, and there's just certain things that you need to look out for in a home in order to keep insurance a lot lower. But for the most part, if you're west of US 1, then you're going to be looking at pretty low insurance rates. Now, there are some pockets in Melbourne, even though it is not necessarily oceanside, that are in flood zones, but for the most part, flood insurance isn't that expensive. It's definitely usually under $1,000 a year. I own a property not in a flood zone, and I still get flood insurance. It's Florida. For me, it's peace of mind, and it's me being safe. So I always recommend people get flood insurance, even if you aren't in a flood zone. I just had someone get quoted $400 for flood insurance, which was super low, so that was great. they're protected. So just something to keep in mind, but you're inland, so you are a little bit more protected from storm surge, from those high winds from the ocean when there's hurricanes or tropical storms. When it comes to Melbourne in general, we don't get severe hurricanes. Most of the time the hurricanes come in from the west coast, the Gulf, and by the time they hit us, they're a storm. So we don't really get too much damage, but it's Florida. So like I said, it's always safer than sorry. Insure your properties as much as possible. So flood insurance is always recommended from me. Number 6 are the beaches. So depending on where you're living in Melbourne, you're going to be anywhere from 10 minutes to 25 minutes to the beach. And so it's not bad at all. You've just got to cross either Pineda or 192 and you're at the beach. So there's lots of beaches. There's Pineda Beach, there is Paradise Beach, there's tons of beaches in Indian Harbor Beach, Melbourne Beach, Satellite Beach. So lots of options. What I recommend is a lot of those beaches actually charge for parking now, unless you're a resident of Satellite Beach or Indian Harbor Beach, which you're not going to be if you're going to be living in Melbourne. There's Tables Beach right across from the Patrick Space Force Station that I really love because it doesn't get too busy. Lots of more like surfers and such over there. But I definitely recommend finding the Brevard County parks if you're looking for a beach because those don't charge for parking, at least as of filming this video today. So otherwise, you can go ahead and get a beach pass or just pay for parking. And the beaches are gorgeous. Miles and miles and miles of beach. You can always venture off a little bit further away from the bigger parks and you'll have your space away from people. Or if you like that, you can be closer to people. Some of them are lifeguarded, some of them are not. Some of them have bathrooms. There's even a dog park at Indian Harbor Beach. It's a little bit more rocky there, which is why they made it the dog park. It's called Canova Beach Park. If your dogs like the beach, then you can bring them over there and there's tons of dogs to have fun. And yeah, it's a great place to hang out too, even if you don't have dogs, because who doesn't love dogs? But yeah, it's a great place to visit with your dogs. All right, let's talk about cost of living. And this can be a hard subject because it's super subjective. If you're coming from North Carolina, it can definitely be maybe a little bit more expensive. If you're coming from New York, California, it's definitely way cheaper, more affordable. It's definitely subjective. There's a lot of resources online. I can link them in the description below where you can compare where you currently live to Melbourne, Florida to compare what the price is of gas, what the price is of insurance, stuff like that. Now, I will say when we moved here from Rhode Island, I can tell you what we found more expensive and what we found less expensive. Home prices here are less expensive than the Northeast from where we live. Gas prices are less expensive. Home insurance was actually less expensive for us because we bought a little bit newer homes. Our homes here are actually 1978, but our homes in Rhode Island were actually pre-1900. Home insurance was cheaper for us here, and car insurance is more expensive. We do have a pool now, so that's an extra expense. That's about $150 extra a month. If you have a lot more time on your hands, maybe you're retired, maintaining your pool, you can probably do it on your own. But for us, we are super busy, so we definitely pay for that pool service, and that adds money to the electric bill as well. We bought our home with solar panels. This could be very rare, but they're paid off, so that helps a lot. So that offsets the cost, but it does add extra expenses to the electric bill because most don't have solar panels paid off like we were lucky to find. And then also food was a lot less expensive. Eggs were a lot less expensive, even though they're about $6 here now, which is crazy. Hopefully, I'm filming this in January 2025. Hopefully those prices will be down by the end of the year if you're watching this in the future. But right now, this is kind of what if you're coming from the Northeast or maybe California, you might actually find insurance to be a little bit less. I think I mentioned this, our auto insurance did go up. It just went down a little bit because I just bought a newer car, but I think we were paying about $1,800 a year up in Rhode Island, and now it's double that for us. I actually just had a client who purchased a home in Palm Bay, and he said his went down. So not many people are subject to. We haven't gotten any accidents since then, but for the most part, I have found that people's car insurance have gone up. Those are some fees to think about when considering making the move. Oh, also don't forget state income tax doesn't exist here in Florida. And we do have homestead exemption on the property tax. So if you live there full time, you do get a sort of a discount on your property taxes. If you are a veteran with 100% disability, you also are looking at almost $0 for property taxes. You do have to pay a portion of the tax bill, but it's usually about $600, $500 a year. That's for like the sewer and stuff like that. So there's advantages of that as well. All right, number 8 is to look out for older homes. This is what's going to affect your insurance. So a lot of Melbourne is built in the 1960s. So a lot of the areas like O'Galley in downtown Melbourne, central Melbourne, which is actually more southern Melbourne, but it's called central Melbourne when you look up listings. A lot of those are pre-1970s. Actually, pre-1975 is going to really be more of the cast iron age with waste line piping. So you want to look out for that because for the most part, for those age of homes, the cast iron pipings are breaking and causing problems in people's homes, backups. And so you really want to be careful with that. Insurance isn't the biggest fan of the cast iron. And to be honest, you might not be either because it can be a risky situation with cast iron piping in your home. So a lot of times I advise clients to look out for homes that are built in 1978 and newer, or look for any properties that are older than that. Look to see in the description if pipes have been changed out to PVC. For the most part, most of my clients do not purchase homes with cast iron because they don't want to end up with the extra expense of changing them out in the future. You can be looking at anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000 with new floors potentially, depending on where the waste lines are located. So a lot of my clients actually opt out of just getting ones with PVC piping. If you're up for that renovation and you find the perfect home, then go for it. But for the most part, it's better to just find PVC piping, which is isn't impossible at all. So most of these areas with older homes are going to be the O'Galley area and downtown Melbourne. And the newer areas are kind of more West Melbourne, which is its own city, but a lot of people can look into West Melbourne when they're also looking into Melbourne. So West Melbourne has a lot more newer homes. Northeast of Melbourne, Lake Washington, Vieira, Sentry are definitely going to be past the cast iron ages. So just super important to look out for that. As for my clients, I do that for them. All right, number 9, let's talk about job opportunities, or what we're seeing a lot of people moving into the area. What is their profession? So for me, a lot of people, maybe you're watching this and you have your relocation offer. A lot of them are engineers, or they are going to be working for the big aerospace companies or the smaller contractor ones, the defense companies. They're military, they're PCSing from Patrick Space Force Base. So that's happening a lot. I have a lot of pilots coming into the area because it's a very short commute to Orlando. There's also the Melbourne airport as well, which is a lot smaller, but it does fly nationally and internationally. So lots of opportunities at that. We've got medical. We've got a lot of people coming to retire. So lots of job opportunities in the defense aerospace world. All right, number 10, it's very fast growing. Now, a lot of the actual city of Melbourne, the city lines is already developed. There are a few new construction opportunities. A lot of them are a little bit more higher end, like over in Washington. I do know of a townhome community coming up in the city lines of Melbourne. There's one that's kind of on the line of Palm Bay coming up. And so it's a very developed city, but there are a few new communities as well. But for the most part, if you're looking for new construction, you're going to be looking in Vieira with Vieira Builders. I have a lot of clients purchase. I think I have 7 families under contract building their dream homes right now. So a lot of people look over in Vieira, especially because the schools are all A-rated over there. Another area is West Melbourne, where there's a couple new communities coming up. One by Stanley Martin that I have a lot of clients on the lookout for. And then if you want new construction but a little bit more affordable, then the other opportunities, Palm Bay is another option that a lot of people will go for because it's close to Melbourne, but you can get something new for a lot less, and sometimes even under $400,000. All right, number 11 is schools. So there's lots of schools in Melbourne and Vieira and Sentry. Like I mentioned just before this, Vieira and Sentry actually all have A-rated schools. There's some other pockets in Melbourne that are going to be with all A-rated schools, and then there's other pockets where there's a mix between A, B, C, and I believe we have a couple possibly D's. I'll put the links below of how to research the schools. So if you, for example, are looking online, maybe on Zillow, and you find a dream home and you want to look up the schools, you can do that. I know Zillow even has ratings on the bottom as well. But if that's super important to you, definitely do your research because there's definitely a mix of different types or different ratings of schools in Melbourne. But also keep in mind that there are lots of charter schools, there's private schools, and there's also what they call choice schools. And you do have to apply a year ahead, but they have the West Shore, which is, I believe, number 2 in Central Florida. A lot of people try to get their kids into that school. There's Pineapple Cove, which is also very popular. So just lots of different opportunities. Definitely do your research if you got little ones, but just wanted to let you know about that. And then number 12, travel opportunities. So living in Florida is so fun because you can literally go drive 2 hours and be in a totally different place. Just to give you an idea of how far away certain areas, Orlando is only an hour away. The airport is about 45 to 50 minutes away, and it's a super easy drive. I love driving to the airport here because you don't really hit any traffic. You're an hour away from Walt Disney World, Universal. You're about 3.5 to 4 hours away from Miami, depending on traffic. Fort Lauderdale is about 3.5 hours. You can go up north, Jacksonville, that will take about 2.5 hours. So you definitely can get all over Florida pretty quickly and experience a whole new culture and environment. We just had a client drive up from Miami today and he was freezing, so it was warmer down there, which is so funny. And Tampa is also about 2 to 2.5 hours away as well. So if you love sports, you can go drive 2 hours to see the Buccaneers. You know, just lots of opportunities to travel within our own state, which is always just really cool. All right, that's all I have for you today. If you're considering making the move to Melbourne or the Space Coast for that matter, make sure to reach out. My information is on the screen right here, the pinned comment and the description, because I got your back when it comes to moving to Melbourne or the Space Coast for that matter. Thanks so much for watching. My name is Rachel Langley, and I'll see you on the next one.